Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. Włodzimierz Karpiński was released from custody yesterday afternoon after the Marshal of the Sejm, Szymon Hołownia, agreed to make him an MEP. Karpiński officially received his mandate today. The former Treasury Minister in Tusk's government and most recently Secretary of Warsaw is suspected of accepting material benefits of nearly 5 million zloty. He has been in custody since February. However, he is now protected by immunity. Włodzimierz Karpiński has already left the detention center yesterday. During a press conference, he stated that he was wronged by the prosecution. The way of action that caused such a prolonged stay in custody. I will issue a relevant statement on this when I cool down, and at the moment I want to meet with my family as soon as possible. On Wednesday, Marshal of the Sejm Szymon Hołownia gave his approval for the former Treasury Minister in Donald Tusk's government to become an MEP. This is not a political decision. It is a decision that had to be made. Any Marshal of the Sejm who did not make such a decision would risk liability to the prosecutor's office, to the state tribunal. The decision was in response to Włodzimierz Karpiński's letter to the Marshal of the Sejm, in which the politician expressed his willingness to accept a European mandate. I, the above-signed Włodzimierz Karpiński, declare that I agree to become a member of the European Parliament. The rules dictate that Szymon Hołownia should make such a decision. What is controversial, however, is the almost lightning speed of signing this consent, which may be hard to accept for some voters. Even if the Marshal of the Sejm believes that he did not have the opportunity to refuse this action, he should have contacted the President of the European Parliament before he even signed it to inform that a person who just got out of prison was going to Brussels. He said there would be no place for criminals in the Polish parliament, but I guess he thought this type of person could represent the European Parliament. By law, Włodzimierz Karpiński is already an MEP and is protected by immunity. In order for the politician to face justice, the court must submit the appropriate application to the European Parliament. There, it must go to a committee, and if it considers the application favorably, the possible lifting of Karpiński's immunity will be decided by all MEPs. The situation when this immunity is lifted from him could be very sensitive. Even if there was such a request, more than once the European Parliament has already failed to make this type of decision. Włodzimierz Karpiński was Minister of the Treasury from 2013 to 2015. He was then appointed President of the Municipal Waste Management Company in Warsaw in November 2019 and later became Secretary of the Capital. He was taken into custody in February this year over the waste management scandal. He is facing charges based on taking a 5 million zloty bribe for rigging tenders at the Municipal Waste Management Company in Warsaw. The former Treasury Minister is not the only MEP with problems with the law. Police are investigating the Qatargate case, which involves, among others, Eva Kaili and Mark Tarabella. During the 2019 MEP elections, Włodzimierz Karpiński came in 4th place. Krzysztof Hetman became an MEP and has now won a seat in the Polish parliament, and interestingly has been chosen as the Minister of Development and Technology in the new government of Donald Tusk. Next was Joanna Mucha, who also chose the same. The 3rd place went to Riyad Haidar, who died earlier this year. As a result, Włodzimierz Karpiński won a seat. Next June, there will be another European election, in which Włodzimierz Karpiński will probably be running in as well. An informal meeting of European Union leaders was held in Croatia. Topics discussed included security and the challenges facing the community, as well as the revision of European treaties. The next session of the European Parliament, which begins Monday, is expected to vote on the adoption of the report of the Constitutional Affairs Committee, which recommended amending the EU treaties. The informal European Union summit was an opportunity for Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki to engage in talks with country leaders. According to the Prime Minister, a serious debate on the state of the European Union is needed. The European Union is at a crossroads. The discussion about those EU challenges that lie ahead is not only gaining momentum, but is also characterized today by a few basic dilemmas: whether to move toward unionization, more and more different regulations of matters concerning production, the economy, migration, internal or foreign affairs, security, or rather to focus on those challenges that are most important and help each other. In the European Union, attempts are being made to federalize the community, however on Berlin's terms. The left and the media favorable to it reassure that this process is long-lasting and not dangerous. But as early as Wednesday, a report calling for changes to the EU's basic treaties may be voted on in the European Parliament. There will be a debate in Strasbourg on Tuesday and a vote on Wednesday. Historian Professor Wojciech Roszkowski referred to attempts to blur the issue in the public debate. This is a very good way of drowning out debate and putting voters' alertness to sleep. The average voter will be easily fooled into thinking that it is hard to define sovereignty, and scholars should do so. This is a way of dumbing down the debate on what we are closest to and what the average voter sometimes doesn't feel. The question is, who is going to put together your school curriculum? Who will tax you? Who will defend you if you are attacked? Do you know, if this bill goes into effect, who will teach your children and what those lessons will look like? Who will stand on the border and defend our country? These are the basic questions that the Polish voter should answer today. On the issue of illegal migration, Brussels wants countries to agree to accept migrants. Their failure to take them in will come with penalties, tens of thousands of euros for each person. In addition, the pact provides an incentive for hundreds of thousands more migrants and smuggling mafias. According to the left, the adoption of the pact will have no consequences. It is supposed to be just the opposite. This is a good document, which will be simply such a migration constitution of the European Union. Poland is a beneficiary of this migration pact as a frontline state. There is no indication that any relocation will take place to Poland. However, conservative and right-wing groups believe that the imposition of the Migration Pact is part of attempts to dismantle nation-states. Countries that took in tens of thousands of migrants faced new problems. We have already become accustomed to demolished capitals and torched cars in German and French cities. I see this illegal migration legalized in Italy and Spain. We see it in France, Denmark, Germany, or Sweden. So this is a provocation to create parallel societies. This is something we cannot afford. The adoption of the Migration Pact is another element of building a European state in which key decisions are not made by national parliaments, but by those that make up the European Commission. Mass illegal migration is treated as a key civilizational threat. This is a thing worth emphasizing because it causes not only the flow of these migrants and consequently can lead to any internal security order, but above all, cultural changes and civilizational changes. The plan to reform the Union includes strengthening the role of the European Parliament and changing voting mechanisms, including abandoning the requirement of unanimity on certain issues. This means abandoning the right of veto. There are plans to establish exclusive competencies for the Union in environmental protection and biodiversity, as well as to build a single economic zone with a common budget and common taxes. Germany has long had the idea of shared sovereignty, and there many academics or German think tanks have talked about it. It is more or less based on the idea that we all give some of our sovereignty to the European Union, and in return we get even more of that sovereignty within the community. It's just that we know that one can give more, the other less. Besides, we get this sovereignty with such ideological cap concocted in Brussels and Berlin or maybe in Paris. So far, Poland and Hungary have objected to the adoption of assumptions in the Migration Pact. However, a change of government in Poland may lead Warsaw to take a different stance on the matter. The Israel Defense Forces said they have found the body of 65-year-old Yehudit Weiss, who was abducted by Hamas on October 7th. The body was said to be near the Al-Shifa hospital in the Gaza Strip. Israel claims that Hamas used the Al-Shifa hospital as a base. According to an army statement, the site where Weiss's body was found also contained military equipment, including half a truckload of weapons, Kalashnikov rifles, and anti-tank grenade launchers. An Israeli army operation is underway at the site. As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu conveyed, there are strong indications that Hamas hostages were held in the hospital. This was one of the reasons why the military entered the facility. Netanyahu assured that Israel's goal is to eliminate Hamas, de-radicalize and demilitarize the Gaza Strip, but not to occupy the territory. Meanwhile, the Gaza Strip, for the second day in a row, was deprived of telephone and internet communications. The UN has confirmed that because of this, it is unable to make contact with workers and deliver humanitarian aid. Day 5 of the battle for the lives of 40 workers trapped in a collapsed highway tunnel in India. Rescuers have already drilled about 1/3 of the distance, but are still missing about 40 meters. We have now advanced 24 meters towards our colleagues, which I think is already a great achievement, but we are trying to reach them as soon as possible. As I said yesterday, if the machines that are on site prove to be insufficient, another machine from Indore will be transported by air. The stranded have been supplied with food, water, and oxygen by pipes since Sunday, and authorities are talking to them via walkie-talkies. The 4.5-kilometer or 3-mile-long tunnel in the northern state of Uttarakhand is part of the Char Dham Highway and is one of the most ambitious projects of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. Authorities so far are not saying what caused the tunnel to collapse. However, the region is known to be prone to landslides, earthquakes, and floods. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful weekend.